Argentina has long been associated with economic dysfunction, plagued by inflation, IMF bailouts, and political chaos for much of the last century. But since the election of President Javier Milei in 2023, it has become something else, a radical experiment in market libertarianism. But why is this happening now? And why does Argentina's success or failure matter for the rest of the world? Argentina has long been one of the world's most unique countries. Grand architecture, rich culture, stunning natural landscapes, and chaotic politics. It's a country that finds it easier to win World Cups than stabilise its economy. But where those World Cup wins owed much to the brilliance of Messi, Maradona, and some questionable refereeing, the volatility in Argentine politics is driven by big personalities that the country's weak institutions just can't control, leading to uncertainty that frightens off investment. President Javier Milei is one of the world's most polarising leaders, a self-declared anarcho-capitalist. The right-wing populist won the presidency by promising to chainsaw the state and crush inflation. He positioned himself as a radical anti-establishment outsider and secured a runoff victory, earning a mandate to impose sweeping austerity measures. And yet Argentina's recent budget surplus was achieved by slashing the living standards of the middle and working classes to reassure markets and benefit elites. Milei is applying Austrian Economics, a school of thought deeply sceptical of any state intervention. It's a brand of libertarianism so extreme that even Milton Friedman, hardly a socialist, found it too ideologically rigid. Since taking office, Milei has moved fast, slashing energy and transport subsidies, eliminating entire ministries, and deregulating in a way that would make Ronald Reagan proud. As of late 2025, inflation has started to come down, a rare achievement in Argentina, but at a steep price. The most vulnerable Argentines have lost much of their safety net in one of the world's most volatile economies. But despite Milei's wild hair and weird fondness for chainsaws, this isn't a new story for Argentina, and it rarely ends well. Argentine governments swing like a pendulum, from populist Peronism to harsh neoliberal austerity, often followed by IMF bailouts. And while media frequently mention Argentina being among the richest countries in the world in the early 20th century, that wealth was based on agricultural exports and always vulnerable to global commodity price shocks. And little has changed since. Argentine politics has long been about big personalities, where each new government often reverses the previous one's policies. Juan Domingo Perón is the most famous name in Argentine politics, and his legacy, social programs, worker rights, and economic nationalism, continues to shape public expectations. But unlike Scandinavian social democracy, Peronism has always been populist, centralised, and fiscally ill-disciplined, with none of the robust institutions of Copenhagen or Oslo. But governments left and right have consistently failed to address Argentina's economic weaknesses, such as low productivity, underinvestment in human capital, and over-reliance on commodity exports. Rather than investing in education, infrastructure, or innovation, successive administrations have often put short-term fixes ahead of long-term rejuvenation. When Peronism collapses under its own weight and clientelism, the pendulum swings the other way. A neoliberal reformer steps in, imposes austerity, spikes unemployment, and triggers a crisis, often resolved by another IMF bailout, followed by more privatisation and deregulation. And a Peronist then comes in and struggles to make the situation any better, at which point Argentines head to the polls, wanting retribution and the total opposite. Enter Milei. His political idol is Carlos Menem, a Peronist who embraced neoliberalism in the 1990s. Menem's government pegged the peso to the US dollar to curb hyperinflation. While initially effective, it reduced the country's competitiveness, devastated Argentine industries, created unsustainable debt, and ended in a catastrophic economic collapse in 2001. But Milei wants to dollarize the Argentine economy again. His reasoning? A deep mistrust of central banks and fiat currency. Essentially Austrian Economics 101. But this would mean surrendering Argentina's monetary sovereignty, which is a bit like going into an escape room solo and saying, "Not my problem. Just leave it to the markets." His focus on cuts over strategy means Argentina stays vulnerable to global commodity shocks. Its reliance on agriculture, a sector already ravaged by the 2023 drought, also puts it on the front lines of climate change, something Milei has often dismissed as a socialist hoax, which isn't exactly reassuring to farmers. But Argentina doesn't have to look far to find a better model. Just across the Rio de la Plata, Uruguay has built one of South America's most robust economies, grounded in institutional stability, cross-party cooperation, and long-term investment in skills, education, and clean energy. Uruguay represents something closer to the European social contract, where government spending is used to build future resilience, not Peronist sugar hits for votes. Milei's spending cuts may reduce the deficit, but they won't help Argentines learn new skills, become globally competitive, or weather the next crisis. Argentina needs massive political and economic reform, not radical austerity. Investors want certainty that Argentina can service its debts, and volatility, polarization, and weak institutions will have CEOs setting up in Montevideo, not Buenos Aires, irrespective of how much they love tango and barbecues. Without strengthening institutions, investing in productivity, and preparing for global shocks, the country risks repeating its past. For now, libertarians around the world are watching Milei closely, hoping his Austrian economics experiment succeeds, so these policies can spread globally and allow the rich to get even richer. But Argentina has been down this road before, and it usually ends at the IMF. Thanks very much for watching.